Good evening, Sorors, and welcome to Real Talk with Val. Real questions, real answers. I am Sora Shantia Fitzgerald, and I will be your moderator for tonight. Thank you for attending tonight's meeting. We will not be providing copies of tonight's meeting, and we ask that you not record. We also ask that you not use any type of note taker during the meeting. If you use a note taker, you will be removed from the meeting and not allowed to re-enter. It is our goal to answer as many questions as we can. However, we have a significant number of sorors registered. Therefore, we will not be able to answer everyone's question. During the question and answer period, you can type your question in the Q&A section. Many of your questions may be answered by visiting the website at vhbforgrand.com. Soars, I present to you our international centennial brand Basileus, Valerie MC Hollingsworth Baker.
Thank you, Shantia. Thank you so much for that. And good evening, everyone. I hope that you all are ready because this is going to be a great night because this is what you wanted to hear about. You wanted to hear about my platform and my timeline. And that's what this is all about because we're going to get down to business. I'm going to share this screen. I want you to buckle up, sit down, get yourself something to drink, some nice beverage. And then if you need to call a few people or text them and say, come on and get on this meeting, please do so because we want as many people on as possible. Tell them to share. You can share the link with them so that they can hear because this is what you want. You want to hear in depth, not a 1 or 2 minutes. You want to hear the full Monty of what is going on with someone's platform. And that's what I'm going to give to you tonight. So I'm going to share my screen. Okay. This is maximizing Zeta to the fifth power, platforms and goals for the future of Zeta Phi Beta Sorority Incorporated. And this is my platform. First, a little introduction, and this is just regular or our introduction of who we are historically and our mission and vision for the organization. That has not changed. But now the first thing we're going to jump right into is my capstone initiative. It's number one. It's called Closing the Generational Poverty Gap. Now, I wanted to focus on something that is happening today. This is what is going on in the world. We're talking about, look at how many people have lost their jobs. Look at how many people that this cycle of because they are maybe not educated as well as some others. So therefore they couldn't get the better jobs and they now have to go on assistance. And then what happens is they have children and their children gets on assistance and their children's children gets on assistance. We've got to close that generational poverty gap. We have to help our people to grow and flourish. And there are so many things that are addressing this critical crisis in America, especially where we are today. So, some of the things we're going to talk about, we're promoting financial literacy programs because, yes, we have them here in Zeta. And see, this is what's really important. When you come up with a capstone initiative, it should always be about the things that are happening currently, but things that we have been doing for ages, but we're going to highlight them because that is what Z Hope is all about. And we have some of these programs already in place, and then we'll be able to bring in additional programs for promoting financial literacy. Then establishing food access initiatives. Now, we always are giving away those turkeys and those dinners for Thanksgiving and things of that nature, but we need to help to grow that, like those food banks and and be in those gardens and grow those vegetables and grow those foods and be able to open that up in some of our communities and help those that can come and pick those vegetables and pick those things that they can take home and that they can use to help to feed their family. We're going to look into a lot more of that and join other organizations that do that. Then there's training for employment skills. Now, we could always be trained. There's a lot of us that need training. And those employment skills could be because maybe you're not made for college, but there's always trade schools. So we want to make sure that we are in tune with that, being able to get those young people into those type of schools and then giving scholarships for those schools. And that's where ZNEF comes in at, because we want to create those scholarships for trade schools. So that'll be something where they can feed into. And then combating the illegal drug usage. Now, that's still going on. That hasn't stopped, but we must try to make sure that it doesn't continually affect and cripple our people. And that's what happens. And we have to have this preventive programs, and we need to have those medical programs. We also need to have those mental health programs. Everything that will help to do that. These are some of the things like I said, we already have, but I want to bring in additional. That's where our sponsors and our partners come in. Additional partners that will help that and enhance these things so that we could be out there with this capstone initiative being like that number one in the country. And then the next one is establishing a crisis desk. Well, we there's always a crisis that's going on. Either it's a crisis, where, there is the houses and land that was burning in California. And then you have when we're having these living in these flood zones. And then there's the hurricanes and the tornadoes. And then there's also these things that happen where we are having black on black crime or white on black crime. These are things that are happening every day with us. And then of course we have ICE and what is going on with that. There are crises that we need to be reporting on, and we need to be able to report on a regular basis, consistently and timely. And this also includes our outreach that we do with our sisterhood when we're trying to help our sisters to get through those hard times when they're in these zones that have these floods, have these hurricanes, have these tornadoes, have these fires. But we want to partner with IHQ. We want to make it like how CNN has, and we have that desk, and we'll have someone that's out there that will be able to report, and we'll be able to hold hands with IHQ, be able to do this, and then also work with our 501c4, because that's the spokesperson when you're talking about anything political, where we can't do that as a 501c3. Normally what we do is we'll issue a statement, but where's the engagement? We'll issue a statement when something happens, when some poor person gets shot to death and by police brutality or something of that nature. We want to stand up and say something. But the engagement, what we would have to do, we would be able to help and do that with our 501c4, and then we will be able to televise it through our crisis desk, working, like I said, with IHQ. And you will see a lot more come out with that, because we will be able to get you that up-to-date information and have it reported out, and have it not only reported out on video, but we will still have it through our communication efforts that we do when we're passing it down through our protocol chain, whether we're doing our making it in our weekly newsletters, anything. But we want to also add that, because we want you to see like it is a news area where you will see live reports. Then reestablishing the pearls, promoting excellence and recognition of legendary service. This I had done before when I was grand, but I want to reestablish it because I want us to be some like how we have the Sigmas who have that Distinguished Honor Society. This is for those members that have gone beyond just what we do in Zeta. They are out there in the world making a change for the good. There are people that are our members that are doing just those type of things, making those changes and making it in the political realm. They're making it in the educational realm. They're making it in the societal realm. We have people that do that, our members, and we need to honor them. We need to showcase them to the world. And then we want them to be in their own individual society where they will come together and they will talk about the things that they do, share their knowledge, share it with us, and see what we can do to continue to uplift them in their efforts, because when we uplift them, we're uplifting Zeta, because it's about people that are Zetas and what they're doing, that shows the world that we are just multicultural, but we are there for everything and everyone, and that what is going to be important. Now, ZNF and Zeta collaboration to the fifth power. Now, this is very important because we've already signed a service agreement with Zeta, the ZNF organization, but we need to step it up. We need to do more and focus on different areas. So we want to focus on communication and marketing outreach. We want to promote ZNF training opportunities on every level of the organization, because we are the number one affiliate, the first affiliate of Zeta. They're 51 years old this year. So we need to promote ZNF more. We've been doing that in the past 3 years, but we want that collaborative spirit of ZNF and Zeta working hand in hand. Because in this day and time, when you look at all of these organizations or these companies, these initiatives, they are giving money to 501c3s. ZNF is the 501c3. So when we can get those kind of funds, those major funds, even from the government with the certain grants, that communication and marketing outreach will help us, because once we get those, we will be able to utilize those funds and then have it trickle down to the chapters. The chapters are you all that are working hard every single day for Zeta. It's a never ending story. But you all should be the ones that are the recipients of the funding that comes through, because they'll be doing certain projects and programs. We're going to leverage that social media with ZNF and Zeta, so that we will be able to speak to these issues and send them out to everyone, not just in Zeta, but outside of Zeta, because that's what we're trying to do. Make sure that on every level, not just political, but every level, we need to have Zeta present. We need to develop promotional materials that reflect both ZNF and Zeta. We need to cultivate those new partnerships, as I said, because we're going to need them so that we'll be able to work their priorities in with ZNF and Zeta. And we want to ensure international fundraising events that benefit regional, state, and local levels. So a lot of this would be in our communication and outreach. Our our next one would be our Zoll 360 training collaboration to the fifth power. Now, you'll see that a lot of these things, we have these, but it's always room for growth, always room for improvement. And that's what it's all about. When one stops, the next one continues on. So that is what we want to do. We want to continue on and move forward and get to the fifth power. So training preparation. Now, with Zoll was created back under past Grand Barbara Moore's term, and it was voted upon by the body. So this is the official training program. Now, we have a number of programs right now that's training. You have the Office of Training and Development. You have the chapter management. You have Finer You. You have this. And you got Zoll. But in my mind, I think it's best if we put everything under the same umbrella, because it all is about training, leadership, and development. All our members should be able to go to one area under one umbrella. Now, that's not to say that there are going to be subgroups somewhere, because there's going to be subgroups of all of what I just said, but it's going to be Zoll. And Zoll is not going to be just every other summer. I want Zoll to be year round. I want to be able to make sure that we're getting the proper training all the time, and it's under one umbrella. So we're going to continue to develop these training modules, because we have modules that we have, but we want to do more modules for that, because sometimes we want to do in person as well as virtually, because that's going to be very important. Because let's remember, everybody might not be able to come to a Zoll every other year and spend X amount of dollars. I got to start thinking about the Sisterhood's pocketbooks. How much can you spend or want to spend on these things? Because Zeta is yet another bill, but you have other bills that are more in the priority of what you need to do. So we need to be able to start thinking about that for the full sisterhood. So we're going to think about virtual, especially for our overseas chapters. They can't always keep running down for Boulay, for Zoll, for this, the regional conference, the state meeting, wherever it is. We need to be able to give them virtual options too, where if they can't come, they still won't be shut out. And then we might have for our older members that maybe they can't come for certain reasons, and they want to have that training. We have to have an open mind about this. We have to make sure that we're looking at all possibilities. So we're going to have this, we're going to prepare these. So as you see, it's going to be these sessions that are going to be throughout the year as well as the summer months. And then the Basileus leadership training. So, implement that virtual training for Basileus, to include those first, second, and those Basileus throughout the online modules and enhancing the accessibility. Now, what's important about this is that, yes, we have that, and we have that in Zoll, but we should have that year round. If you miss Zoll, it should be at some place. There should be at some place else. Should be at your state meeting. Should be at your regional conference. It should be other places, and that's what we're trying to move towards. So you will have that. We want to do bi-monthly certification trainings, because right now it may be on a quarterly basis. I've heard a lot of members talk about like the training for certification. It doesn't come often enough. There's so many that still need it. And then of course there's certificates, and when are you going to get your certificates, because you haven't gotten your certificate in months. And that's fine, in terms of we heard you and we're going to do better, because that's what it's all about. You want to do better. And that's what we're trying to do. We want to now try to establish bi-monthly, every 2 months, online mandatory certification trainings, because you do have some mandatory certifications that you have to go to. So we're going to make it that we can do it more than every quarter. And we're going to streamline those training efforts to optimize the time at the in-person or the virtual meetings. So that's going to be very important, because once again, in person and virtual. And there'll be rules and regulations for both, but I just want you to know that that is something that we're going to put in place. Course review and refresh. We want to regularly assess and update all the training courses in the international portfolio, because we want to ensure relevance, to incorporate new training topics, because we want to add new training topics, because there's always something else that you can learn, something else you can do, something else that you're interested in. So we want to make sure that we have a tight portfolio. Everything in there is going to be things that anyone can utilize wherever they are in their Zeta career, or even outside of their Zeta career. We want to bring back train the trainer, because as I said, remember, we want to do Zoll not just every other summer. We want to do it year round. So we want to now go back and we want to train others to help us to work these training sessions, these certification sessions. And why we have the train the trainer is because we want the trainers all to be speaking the same language, sitting in the same church, in the same pew, doing the same thing. So, what someone is getting in the Midwest and somebody else is sitting there and saying something in the Eastern region, that's not going to go. That's why this train the trainer program is going to be a real crucial part of what we're doing when we're adding that back in, because we're going to make sure that they go through intensive training on the subjects that we're going to ask them to teach, and they're going to stick with those subjects. And if they want to change and go to another subject, we will have to train them as well and give them the documented material. They will not be making up material on their own. They will have documented material that is being made and is standardized. All of this is standardization, how we're going to move forward. Executive coaching series. Now, I want to also reintroduce that because we have executive coaching where we aimed at the developing leadership skills for opportunities outside of the organization, because we do a lot in Zeta, but then we got to think about our Sorors and what they're doing in their careers. Some are just starting off. So they're starting off at the ground level. Then you have mid-level executives, and then you have the senior executives. Now, when we're talking about that, we had coaching in there where we actually had certified coaches, and they gave us 3 free sessions for each of the members that took the executive coaching series. And if they wanted to continue, then they would work out any details with that coach. But this is very important because I know people sometimes in their careers, they get stuck. They might be in the middle and want to know how they could get further, but they're stuck and they might need some help. This executive coaching series will help that. Then you might be at the top, but maybe some people that are at the top, they want to change and turn 360 and do something else before they retire. So how are you going to do that? Or you might be wanting to exit out and chill out for a while and then think of what you're going to do next. All of that is what we would be talking about in these series, trying to help you. And especially for those that are starting ground level, we really want to help them so that they understand what they're looking for and how they will be able to relate and move up in their careers. Now, let's talk a little bit about boosting partnerships and sponsorships to the fifth power. So, I really need to talk about the nurturing and expanding of these partnerships, enhancing the community impact for sustainability. This is important because this is something that I do well, because I do go out there and I get those partners and I get those sponsors. But we've got to make sure that we just don't get them and then at some point they're going and we don't even know why, or what are they actually doing for us. We have to be able to ascertain if we want sponsors because they're giving us money and that money is going to help programs. It's going to help it's going to help chapters, however it may be. Or we want partners that we'll be getting something back for our members, and we'll talk a little bit about that. But this engagement, fostering that trust, because we're going to have these regular roundtable discussions to understand the partner needs and expectations. Because you got to manage people's expectations. You got to know what they want, what they're looking for, and how you're going to help them and how they're going to help you. So I'm not saying that it may not be being done now, but it's always something that we could do more of because we want to make it better. And we want to go, like I said, maximizing to the next level, to the fifth power. So we're going to do more engagement with them because we want them to not only talk about what they can do, but you may never know when these same partners, they're so impressed with what you're doing, they might have passed your name on to somebody else where you'll be able to get a foot in the door and do the same thing with a next partner. So it's always bringing in more and engaging them. And partners like to be engaged, not just once a year, not just, every 6 months, but they need to be regularly engaged, regularly stroked, and they need to hear from the president. And they will have a team that will be there for them, but they need to hear from the president as well, because one president speaks well to the next president, and that's how one hand washes the other. We want to conduct annual surveys because we want to implement these surveys for partner satisfaction, because we need to know if they're satisfied with us as a partner. How are we communicating with them? How are we working with them? What are we doing to help them? How are they helping us? This is all what we will need from these annual surveys, because that would be information that the team could take back, they can digest, and they could see how we are being rated by our partners. And happy partners mean there's going to be more engagement, more funding, and hoping to stay longer. And that's what that is all about. Then establish a think tank. So I want to create this team to identify potential partners who are going to align with Zeta's missions and visions. You see, that's also important, because as we already have partners that we currently have and we're working with them, we want to make sure that we start gathering together these listings of potential partners. That's what this think tank is about. Making sure that we have people that are sitting down and know what our vision is, what our goal is, what we want to do, because we are going, if we say that we're the number one service organization in the United States. We say it, but United States got to know it. So we got to make sure that we're getting partners that are influential, influencers, that they can go out and talk about how great we are, what we're doing, and that their mission and vision is matching ours. So this think tank is going to give us listings of these potential partners, and then we're going to go out and we're going to see how we're going to get those partners to come on over to the Zeta side. We're going to strengthen our onboarding process. Now, see, right now, I believe, just like on a job, you go on there, they're going to give you an onboarding process. They're going to, they're going to give you your badge, your ID. They're going to tell you, they're going to give you a tour to tour the building. They're going to give you everything that you need, your sign in, your passwords, all that kind of stuff. Well, we need to onboard. We're going to need to do onboarding for our partners with an experience. So we want them to have a personalized experience. We want them to have a little reception for new partners. We want a gathering of the national officers and maybe appointees or whoever. We want to get together. We want to welcome them to the Zeta family. We want to tell them that we believe that they made the best choice in being a partner with us. We want to be able to let them know who we are and how they're going to be treated for the time that they have signed on with us. So that is going to be very important. You're going to hear a lot more about that from our team that will be taking care of that. And then there's exit interviews. Now, I believe that we need to we need to conduct exit interviews, because there are partners that sometimes they leave us. But what are they leaving us for? We need to gain information on why. Is it because there was funding and then the funding was cut, so they don't have it anymore? Is it because they changed their direction in their mission and vision and they're going in another direction? Or is it that we're not doing something and they're not satisfied, and we didn't manage their expectations properly? We need to know, because if we have these exit interviews, we are also learning what we did right, what we may not have done, and what we could do better the next time. Because it's all about learning who your partners are, what they expected, and if they're not satisfied, we should have known about that before the exit interview. assign partner specialists. Well, we're going to, it's not just, the partner and sponsors, the chairs, but we want to have a team. And every partner and sponsor we have, we need to have a designated specialist who's going to address their specific needs to ensure that their tailored support and communication is going direct through to them. And that makes them feel that they're special because they'll have that one person they can communicate to at any given time, not just every quarter, every semi, every annual. And of course, they will be talking to me as the president because I want to always be able to engage with my partners and sponsors. But I want these specialists to be able to give them the white glove treatment. And every partner and and sponsor will get this. And that's what we want to do because once again, we want to make them feel that they're part of the Zeta family and that they're truly happy to be with us. Quality Control Committee. This is another level of what we need to do because we need to be responsible for these periodic reviews for sponsors and partner memorandums because we have every partner and sponsor we will have a memo of understanding and that's going to list out exactly the expectations of the partner and then the expectations of Zeta. So this quality control committee, they're going to have to look through these MOUs on a regular basis and to ensure that we're meeting the partner's expectations and the partner is meeting our expectations. So this is the first stopgap. That if we could, if the quality control could start seeing that there's issues and problems, we can nip it in the bud, address it right away, and get back on the train. And that's what this is all about to make sure. So the partner now knows there's somebody that's watching, that's looking out for what's going on and how it's going on. And that's what's going to be very important because as long as we both understand each other, we will have a beautiful relationship. Now let's go to illuminating the Z Hope, illuminating the service work. So now Z Hope, yet again, another established program that the body voted on years ago under Barbara Moore's administration. And we've had that in existence since then. But once again, we need to see where we're going with this. So we want to continue to improve the reporting functions in ZSMS to better utilize the quantitative data. So even building an archival feature because see archival is so important because we do so much work year after year after year and I'm talking about the chapters now, the chapters, the members of the chapter. You all do a lot of work and we want you to report the work that you do. But we, on the other side, we need to have that, and that's IHQ. They need to have that ZSMS updated where that archival feature is there. So you can go back 5 years, you could go back 10 years, you could go back 15 years, and you can see how we have been working and what we have been doing and what projects that we were currently doing versus what we're doing now and how these initiatives helped and how many numbers of people in our communities we help but we have to hold on to that and that's something we we don't do as well when we're trying to have those archival features. And that's something that I really want to build up because once we start doing that from the point we start archiving into the future, many years, when we have these opportunities for grants and that's coming out of the government or the states or whatever. They want to know that kind of information. They want to know what happened, what they were doing. Were you doing this already? Were you doing it for 5 years? Were you doing it for 10 years? Do you have some kind of documentation on it so you could add to the application? That puts us in a better light when it comes to if somebody is going to make a decision whether we getting $5 million or not. So this is the kind of things that we need to do, and this will be very helpful in the long run. And then we want to do this deep cleansing of the Z Hope initiatives because we do this all along. Every couple of years we do this, and we'll need to do it again to make sure that these initiatives all have relevancy for where we are today and what we're doing. Now, I know that a lot of chapters they want to go out there, they want to do 50 million things, and they say we're doing, y'all are making us do too much, but that's not the issue. You really need to really focus on your community assessment that you have now to see what is really necessary in your communities. Now, we do, as any administration, we do come out with capstone initiatives, but in administration with you smart, you're going to come out with something that is already built into Z Hope, and you could take those and we can elaborate on that and move it forward and capitalize on the capstone initiative like we will do with closing the generational poverty gap. Now, this is very important because once you have all the initiatives, you'll be able to go through that. And I want to tell you that we want to also look at the how we change things and how we're going to change things again. I believe that as chapters and in Z Hope, we had many initiatives, and some chapters have stable initiatives that they do every year. Now I know some of these points were disbanded, but I don't believe in disbanding points. Everyone here is a volunteer. And everyone is doing the best that they can because we can't afford to pay you. So I don't see that there is an issue if we are just giving out certain points for things that you do. If you're cleaning up a highway and that's what you've been doing for years, you should get points for it. Why? Because it's environmental. You don't want to see these nasty highways with all this trash and the vermin running around and everything, and people get sick. It's in the air. This is why you clean up the highways. It has its intrinsic value. If you've got a a youth program and you've been doing youth for the last 5 years, well, maybe you need to get extra points because youth is a hard thing to manage day by day, month by month, year by year, and the youth coordinators are doing a wonderful job. But if you are handling youth, you need to have those points. So we're not only going to look at that and clean up and make sure we have all the initiatives that have relevancy, but we're going to look at that point system because we're going to have to bring back what we know that people are doing. And you know what? You're doing, you're not doing it just for points. I know some people say, well, they're just doing it for points, but when you are a volunteer. That's about all we can do. Do something to highlight what your chapter did. So if you get a few points and you get up on the stage, you get up on the stage, Boule, and you get a certificate, we thank you for that because you're highlighting what Zeta does day in and day out for their communities. And we want to appreciate you and we want to make sure that you know that you're appreciated. We want to continue to build the infrastructure surrounding the international women of color uh, because we know that we've had that for years. And we also know that we have been in these areas. But here's where I have an issue. We do have wells. I know that now they've found a company that has looked at all the wells and they can see what's in disrepair and what's not disrepair. Well, we already had that before. You see, sometimes we need to know what the history is before we start talking like this is the first time something is being done. Because it has been done before. We have reports on that. And as you know, I keep all my receipts. I can pick them up and show you what we have done and have reports under Mary Bro Wright when we were doing those wells. You even have reports for me when under my administration. But we can't say that we have international chapters and we don't have good infrastructure for them. Where and that is an issue that I have because I've spoken to the international chapters on more than one occasion, not just now, but even when I was first anti, even when I was grand, and we were trying to work through certain things. What works for us doesn't necessarily work for the international chapters. They have government restrictions, state restrictions, you name it. They have different things than we have here in the States. And we have to realize that. So when we start talking about initiatives, we need to expand our mind and think about what type of initiative would be able to be helpful in terms of giving it to the international women of color group so that the overseas chapters will be able to do things. I want to have overseas members on this international women of color group to give more to what we know because we only know where we live. But you don't you how if I say raise your hands, everybody that's been to Ghana, there'll be a whole lot of people that have not been to Ghana and don't know the situation in Ghana. We also need to be able, when we talk about budgeting, we need to budget not just to travel around the state, but we need to get the whoever is going to be the director. They need to be able. We need to pay for them to go over to Ghana or to Liberia and see each year what is going on and what we need to do. They can eyeball the wells. They can look at where if we're giving to a woman's shelter, or we can see where our money's going. We could help those chapters. We have to see what their needs are because some of these chapters they are there because they have transient members coming and going because it's the military. But how about where they are there ways that they can encourage people that are non-military to come into the chapter? Maybe those are kind of things that we need to talk about because as you know, military members, they travel. They go from here to there. They stay 3 years here, 2 years here, five, and then what happens to the chapter? So some of these chapters are hanging on by a thread. But we have to be able to communicate with them. We have to meet them on the ground where they stand. That means if it's 3 o'clock in the morning for me, but it's 10 or 11 o'clock in the day or 9 o'clock in the evening for them, then I'll get up at 3 o'clock in the morning and I'll talk to them. I did that when I was first and I can do that again because you have to be concerned about your members, all of the members, no matter who they are, and talk and see what we can do to help them. And this is what we're going to do with trying to build this infrastructure, trying to see what we can do with those chapters, helping them even with shipping. You can't imagine how hard it is trying to ship things to some of these places. We have to really get a better handle before we start running out making more chapters across the seas and not being able to really help them. And that's not to say I thank all the chapters that go ahead and send money over for financial donations or for fundraising efforts. I love you all for that, but we as the management of Zeta and IHQ, we need to have a way to be able to see how we can fortify that infrastructure as well. I want to working collaboratively with ZNEF on the programmatic initiatives because once again, when when ZNEF and Z Hope can get together, a lot of these grants who are looking for different things, we will be able to have that information because Z Hope will be able to share with ZNEF that information, and that was what would be going on the application. And once the money comes in, ZNEF doesn't keep it. We will make sure that it trickles right down to the chapters that are doing the work in the communities. And that's what I did when I was grand, when we had NC&W. When we got the grant and we were the first, we got over $346,000 while I was grand, and that money went back to the chapters. And that's what I want to continue to do when we do the collaboration with ZNEF on the programmatic initiatives. And that would be through the help of Z Hope and their information that they will be able to share. And we got to continue to re-energize our and invigorate our Stork's Nest program. We've got to standardize these Stork's Nests across the sisterhood. We need to make sure that everybody is doing the same thing. I'm telling you, people wanted to take away Stork's Nest from Zeta. And if we don't get it all together, that would happen. So we're going to have to circle our wagons. We're going to standardize what we're doing. We're going to have to help on a national level to do that. I want to have these quarterly meetings with chapters to engage them with the initiative to make sure that they understand what is needed, what is being done, and what we can do to be helpful. We want to that shift for rebrand and marketing. We want to make sure that if we have to do any more rebranding and marketing for it, we will to give it a new fresh face. And we want to update the educational program and online services because that is something that our expected mothers need, and we need to find ways in which we can do more for them. Now, let's go on to redefining discipline and complaint procedures. There's a lot that's been going on, and I've heard a lot of things that have happened, but we can always do more and we can always do better. I want to reestablish the conflict resolution teams. I know we have conflict resolution, and I started that in terms of an actual national team back when I was the grad. But I want to make sure that we have dedicated teams on every level, not just national. We want regional. We want state. We want to make sure because we've got a lot going on in Zeta and this and we've got a lot of we got a lot of chapters, we got a lot of members, and it goes from the ground up, and we need to have these certified conflict resolution specialists that will be able to help us, because we need to have to talk to someone. We have to start trying to manage our issues on a chapter level, on a state level, on a regional level, even national level. We've got to try to understand how we got to where we are and how we can move forward. This is so very important. And there is so much conflict going on from one end to the other that they can't keep up with it. And you hear that in the report sometime. So we're going to have these teams to pull that in because sometimes the conflict is something that maybe it may start that they can resolve it themselves, but if not, then we have to have these specialists on every level. And why I say that is because we need it because we don't want people to be burnt out. If you only have one group and they're trying to deal with national, deal with regional, deal with state, deal with the chapter, it's not going to work because it's just like being an air traffic control pilot person. Here we go. They're in burnout because it's a very stressful job. And conflict resolution can be very stressful if you're hearing conflict every single day and how you're going to make things better. So we need to have more of them. That's what they truly do. And that's how we can do it on every level to try to ease the conflict. Enforce report and heresy. Now, here hierarchy. Now, here we go. We already do that, but we have to continue to clarify the process through training of the members, the chapters, the officers, how they should report complaints to ensure that they're going through the proper channels. They're doing this now, but we want to enforce. We want to continue to enforce this because unfortunately, sometimes we don't read, and we just rush to do A, B, and C, and there are things that we have to do. So we want to make sure that the hierarchy is being enforced. We want to define the complaint processes and the types. Um, there's things that should be escalated to headquarters versus those that are manageable at regional, state, and local levels. And we've got to try to do that because the national IDC, they get they get many complaints. But some things may have been able to be resolved on the other levels, because it could have been, once again, a lot of conflict. And that's why it ties back to what I was talking about with the conflict resolution teams on every level. So we'll be able to try to deal with that before it gets to the final level. Because when you get to the final level, it should be something that is monumentous, like if it's fraudulent, people that are defrauding our the treasuries in their chapters, in their regions, in their states and national. If you have MIP violations, and I don't mean because you skip step three. I'm talking about if you have hazing and pledging, people getting hurt, people going to jail. Those are things that are a catastrophe that should be going right up to headquarters. But things about we not getting along with each other in our chapters, somebody got the elected office and they didn't, and then they got a bone to pick with them, and they're going to do something about that. That is not a catastrophe. That is something that we need to straighten out on that level. So we have to really try to continue to define the complaint types. And then also, if they get to that level, if they're skipping and going right to the top and they see that this is what kind of problem it is, they should just send it on back down to where it belongs and get it fixed. Because we cannot handle everything that comes up at the top that doesn't need to be at the top. And review anonymous complaints. Well, I understand that, sometimes people have anonymous complaints, but everything shouldn't have to be an anonymous complaint. Because if you really have a problem and you see something, you should be able to put your name on it and send it out. And we should not worry about people trying to get back at you or anything of that nature, because see, to me that's that mean girl spirit that we're going to talk about in a little bit. But we shouldn't have that. And we also have those policies where it's whistleblowers, so you shouldn't even have anybody coming at you if you are complaining about something that is that serious. But we really need to reassess that policy about anonymous complaints to determine if any adjustments are necessary. Because I think sometimes I feel like the barn door has shut, and the horse has been and the horse has been gone, and we just running in circles. And then how do you really assess who you're going to ask when it's anonymous? So we really need to look at that and come to some decision about what we're going to do about that. And then standardize the disciplinary actions. I believe we need clear guidelines on appropriate disciplinary actions for unfounded complaints. Hear me what I say, unfounded complaints. We have actions that come up. Someone has complained, people have complained, investigation has been done, and then the verdict is unfounded. So at that particular time, what has been done is that it's been damage to somebody's reputation. It probably went out into the stratosphere and social media. You don't know what kind of mental stress that this has caused them for them to now be a letter to say that it's unfounded. So my question is, what are we going to be doing about the complaint from the person that sent it over to national? Because if it's unfounded, then maybe there should be some disciplinary actions for them. And this is something that we really have to think about, because we have to stop these unnecessary complaints, because they are unnecessary. Because if it's unfounded and people know it's unfounded, that was just something to do sometimes when people just want to get back at you. And that's not right. And we have to be, so if we have to make sure that we have a standardized disciplinary actions so that we know what is happening. Not so if you're wrong, and then you're going to be punished. But if you're not wrong and someone has sent out erroneous information, then what is going to happen to them? There should be something that happens to them as well. So we will have to talk about that uh, as a board as well, because this is something that is important and it is damaging some of our sisters, and we need to be able to address that. Communicate outcomes. Now, once a case is finished and there's a resolution, the complainant, they don't get any information, even to say the case is closed. Uh, the complaint was this wasn't it was either unfounded or found or was correct. Something has happened, it's moved to the next level, whatever. But someone should be able to get back to the person that made the complaint and let them know if it's closed out or not. They shouldn't be sitting in the dark. And that's something that we need to also talk about to really tighten up the whole process. And then the decision making. Now, this may sound kind of strange because I am running for Grand Basileus, but I thought about this, and I believe that when it comes to decision making right now, the Grand Basileus is the only one that issues out C&Ds and suspensions because of version 12 of the Constitution and bylaws. You now know that for expulsions, that was taken out of her purview and given to the body at the Boule. But I believe that we should create a small oversight committee, maybe the executive committee on the board that would include the Grand Basileus uh, when it comes to issuing cease and desist orders and suspensions. It shouldn't be in the hands of one person. I feel it would be fairer that way. And it would also protect us legally. So no one would feel that, oh, this is my friend, I'm letting this one slide, or this one isn't, and I'm going to give them a harsher penalty. We need to really be consistent about C&Ds and suspensions. We need to be able to have a team that does that. It should not, just like the expulsions, I believe it's the same thing that should be done. It should be taken out of the hands of one person and given to a small team to do that until everything is straight, until they know exactly where they're going on the next move. Because some suspension could even be, they might disagree and think that it might have to go to expulsion, but that will then go to the body. But we would need that because we want to also know that if you know, and that is the entire small oversight committee, if you see that there is something coming across your desk and you know the person, they may be friendly with you, they may be your friend, you should recuse yourself of even being involved, because that would make it seem that you are showing favoritism to your friends. I had to recuse myself on one or two occasions when I was grand, because I'm not going to, I want to be fair across the board. So I believe that's what we should be doing. And if it's not being done, then it should be. And then also having that oversight committee as well, because that would help out and take the burden off of just one person. So let's go on to Grand Inspiration Connection. I really like this one because this is something that I feel that we need to really start to circle. We want to circle around our past grants. Now, yes, we have past grants that have been, those that have been consultants and mentors and things of that nature. But I really want to standardize this. I want to utilize our past international Grand Basli expertise for major programs and initiatives as consultants. So we have major programs within the organization, and then we have other things that are outside the organization. But I think we should have a specific grand bachelor, past grand bachelors on each one of these because right now because of it was because of version 12 or 11 at the time. They took off that a grand the immediate past grand can't sit on the board. Well, okay, she can't sit on the international board, but she can be a consultant because we need her expertise. There were only 20, there's only 25 that are past grands and only 5 that are left right now. And they led the organization, so they have certain expertise in what they were doing and should be considered to be a consultant on certain programs. And I have a couple of programs that they will be great on, each one of them. And I hope they would consider that because we need their expertise. And I want to appoint various past international grand bachelors to represent Zeta as a liaison on our outside organization that Zeta holds membership because we're members of outside organization. And it doesn't mean that the grand has to be at every single thing. We need to be able to we need to be able to get our past grands out there. That's what the Deltas do. That's what the AKAs do when we keep saying, oh, why aren't we like them? Because we don't utilize our past grands. We just bring them out, when it's a boule or something of that nature. But we need to be able to engage them. Now, maybe once in a while you'll see one go to something, but we need to do this on a consistent basis. We need them to be that liaison, appoint them to those areas. So when the grand bachelors could show up when she can, when she's not busy, but they will be those liaisons to those outside organizations. And then I'm creating a new position entitled Past International Grand Bachelor Concierge Director and her committee. Um, these are very these are very special women in our organization. And we have to be able to treat each and every one of them with the highest respect due the office that they had. Whether they're invited or they are coming to something, they all should be taken care of and treated with respect. And the concierge director and her team will be taking care of all their needs. They will be working with IHQ, they will be working with protocol, they will be there and they will have each team member will be assigned to each one of the past grants, and they will take care of travel, lodging, everything that is needed, any amenities, whatever. They will work with the areas wherever they're going to go. If they're going to a national meeting, they go into a regional meeting, they go into a state meeting, wherever they're going. If they're going to speak at a event, the this director and committee will know about it, and they will be able to work with the people on the ground to make sure that those past grants get to where they're going, have their proper escort, do everything that is needed. But they will be that in between person that will be able to work in conjunction with chapters, the state, the region, any protocol that goes on, or the protocol teams. But they have to have their own person that they can talk to on a regular basis. And that's what that's going to be all about. Because once again, it's not about the person, it's about the office and title that they had. And not only, we're not saying that we need to treat everybody with respect, but we got to give them an extra dose of love because they are our past grands. Now, leveling up leadership. So we're going to talk a little bit about a general, the overall sisterhood, social, emotional, learning efforts, customer service excellence, and all of those things when we talk about leveling up the leadership. One of my favorite things is the undergraduate shadow program that I thought about a number of years ago, and I really wanted to really reincarnate, I said this because it's really important. Our undergraduates are our future. Now, I know as I've traveled all the states, the regions, for this campaign initiative that we have here, I have undergraduates asking, well, what do you envision in your administration for the undergrads? And I tell them this. I tell them that I want to put them on each and every committee that we have. I want them to be able to learn about Zeta through all of these committees that they're on because they're going to be the next, the future of where Zeta is going. So you got to give them that grassroots training. You just don't wake up in the morning one day and say you want to be the Grand Basileus because it all looks glamorous and wonderful, but it's hard work. It's hard work to be a regional director. It's hard work to be a state director. Heck, it's hard work just to run your chapter. But we gotta get them involved in every level. And that's what we have to do. And if that takes what we have to do on the budgetary for national, making sure that some of these funds are allocated to certain things when we're talking programmatic, more programmatic, that's what we're going to do. Because it's not just about traveling for the grand and XYZ. It's about everybody and what we can do for everyone that's on these programs and how we're going to move them. So I want to, make sure that there's going to be a team and it's going to be under Zoe, and they're going to be looking at how they're going to create the full program with rubrics and how they're going to have submissions for undergrads to get into the program. And this program will start running next year, and it's going to go right on through to the end of June 2027. That's going to be the first run, and they're going to shadow current elected officers or even those that have been officers before in certain areas, so that they can get the insight into the leadership roles, truly what is being done behind the scenes as well as what's up front, and get trained because they can train on a state level, they can train on a regional level, they could even train on a national level. We all are going to be involved. It's going to be exciting. We're going to develop an understanding on both formal and informal responsibilities. Like I said, behind the scenes expectations, because we got to manage their expectations. And they got to understand how to manage other people's expectations. We're going to strengthen that collaborative skill and effective communication because we all need to be able to communicate effectively. But what I see at the end of this is that I see that we want to have at the end of the first leg of the program is Boule 2028. I want to see from that team that they will choose at least a first, second, and third as far as undergrads that have graduated out of this program. And there are going to be certain things that we're going to have them highlighted at the Boule. We're going to make sure that first, second, and third that we're going to give them full registration. We're going to give them full lodging, air, everything that they need, so that they'll be able to get to Boule and they will be a part of that Boule. But what's going to be important in that first place undergraduate, I'm going to have her be the international grand basilisk for a day at Boule. And I want her to see everything that goes on behind the scenes of what it takes what it takes to be that grand when you're there in the midst of everything, and how everything is working and how crazy it is behind the scene and how everybody is clamoring and going and what the grand has to do, and all the behind the scene things that we have to address as the grand when we're doing this Boule. But she's going to get that experience, and she will be on one of those programs. She will be that grand for that day. Because, see, that's the culmination of being able to realize this is what it takes. And you went through that shadow program to get there. So I'm real excited about that. And I hope the undergraduates will be excited about that too. Besides them working on every single committee that we put out there. So when we put out the information for committees, I am leaving a spot open for undergrad on all of the committees. And I want to see you all participate. If we don't, I'm going to call y'all. I'm going to make sure that the undergrad advisors, but everybody's, y'all going to participate because this is what you wanted. You wanted to be heard. You wanted to help make decisions for the organization, and this is how you're going to do it. Then we have the youth auxiliary, leadership and scholarship pathways. Well, you know, we're great at what we're doing. Once again, our youth groups are growing, they're moving. We want to be able to also add something. And I decided, with being that we're in scholarship and education, I really want us to start looking at something like their national spelling bees. I want to structure this competition because it's going to help our our youth. I want to be on those streaming networks where where all of these schools are participating and you have all these kids coming in for the spelling bee. I want our kids to be on that. So we're going to participate. We're going to have a team once again that's going to take care of that for our youth. They're going to be working with our youth groups. They're going to be, once again, they're going to be from the Zoll, from under Zoll. They're going to be right doing that as well. We're going to have participants. We'll compete on local, state, and regional levels. We're going to advance them, the finalists on the national level, and then the program will promote academic excellence, leadership development, and confidence. This is something that we're going to do, and for that, we're going to be able to also make sure that we are going to give scholarships and things of that nature to our national winners. But this is really important because I believe we can take this to the next level and get our kids more involved in that. And that's what's going to give them that confidence. That's going to give them that drive and zest. We have a lot of young people that are doing great. They're great writers. They're great speech writers. They act. They do a lot. But I want them also to get also that educational piece involved there with that spelling bee because that is going to be really important as well. Our Zeta Male Network, strengthening partnerships and purpose. We want to, with our Zeta Male Network, we want to bring them in together. They're growing. Every day they're growing. And we have to thank Dr. Gilla Tiart for creating that under her administration. So now we're gonna keep stepping it up. We want to develop a standard operating procedure manual for them on a national level. We want to enhance the structure to support consistent engagement. We want to implement those strategies that support recruitment and long-term retention because we need more Zeta Male Network members coming in, helping, just like our friends, the Amici. So we want our significant others, our husbands, our brothers, our cousins, whatever, that will help us help those chapters bring it together because they can do a lot and they can bring a lot in terms of not only new members but dollars, fundraising, and just assisting their chapters. And I want to dedicate this virtual retreat to align visions, expectations, and future direction because they need a retreat so that they can come together and they can talk about things that have been happening on their levels and not just coming to just boule. So they'll need that. We want to make sure that the National Zeta Male Network team will be able to create that retreat and to really make it robust and exciting, something that the men will enjoy And then that will be able to carry that through right on to the boulets and to their chapters that they are partners with. And then there is our amici. we we know that they have a standard operating procedure manual, but we want to update it and clarify for consistency. We also want to try to continue to strengthen and support their recruitment and retention because we know that we have a lot of older amici, but we're starting to get younger ones coming in, and that's something that I wanted when I was grand, trying to make sure that we have programs to bring in new members to the Zeta Amici auxiliaries because you don't want them to die off. You want them to continue. And to continue, you have to get fresh blood. And the fresh blood is what you get when we do recruitment. So maybe the way that we recruit for Zeta may not be the same way that we recruit for our Mika, and we need to understand how we can do better at that, and then to make sure that our Mika, we do scholarships for those that are going to school. I want to make sure that ZNEF starts housing those scholarships because we want to encourage them if that's what they want to do. If they want to go to school and they want to graduate and become a Zeta, more power to us, but we need to be able to help them. So that would also help knowing that there's those kind of programs because it will help in the recruitment and the retention. We want to we want a virtual retreat with them as well because they do come to the state meetings and the regional conference and national. But we need to have a retreat with them where they can just be, just let loose and talk about the things that concern them and what's going on in their communities and their areas and what we can do better for them and what they can offer more for us and how we're going to get that together. So we're not asking for them to spend a lot of money because they already do that with coming to the state, the region, national. But we want to get some fun things that we can do on a virtual retreat for them and really get them together. And we did a lot of virtual when we were in the pandemic. So I believe that we can do a lot in virtual for them as well. And then, as I said, we want to establish a continuing educational scholarship in support of personal and professional growth. And we want to do that through ZNAF to help those amici that are going to school. So we have financial aspects. You know, I want to talk about some of the things that I'm concerned about. I want to continue to promote financial literacy initiatives. We always have to, it's better when we learn more. We have organizations that we partner with that teach us about our financial literacy and how we can do better. And we're going to get more uh, sponsors and partners that will do that for us because it's always good to know what you have and how you can manage your funding and make it grow. Um, I need to keep developing diverse funding resources. So and sources of those funding. So that's going to be something that I would be working on, just like I have done previously. Implement budget management training. I believe that that is something that we have to do on a regular basis. It should be almost mandatory because anybody that is in a chapter on the state management on the regional level, man, and when it comes to budgets, we need to learn how to create the budgets. We need how to learn to read the budget. We need how to learn to report out on the budget. And everyone needs to be able to be savvy so that they can ask the right questions. Sometimes we sit and we listen to these reports and I think we just waiting for the report to be over and there's not a lot of us asking those critical questions. But if we know what we're looking for and we can get that training to even better understand what we should be looking for, we would be able to ask those questions and find out for ourselves what the answers are. And because we don't want to hear it from a third party, you want to hear it because you asked and you found the answer out for yourself. we want to foster that transparency in financial reporting. We want to make sure that you know the ups, the downs, the sides of everything. Everything is not always peaches and cream. It's when you give a financial report on this is any level. You can sit and say, you can open up the report and say, oh, well, we've got, $8 million dollars in the bank. Well, a lot of times our members just think, wow, I can see, I see it on their faces. They get excited. Oh, we got some money. We didn't worry about it. But the questions to ask is, out of that $8 million, how much of that money is restricted that we can't spend for admin or programmatic? And then what is it in that restricted funds that is equaling out that could be like $3 million? So right then and there, you really don't have $8 million to spend. You have less three. So then you need to find out what from there, you know, are all the breakdowns. And then you want to know out of that eight, well, how much is new money that's coming in? Meaning your MIP, or how much is new money from new sponsors, and how much are residual funds from residual sponsors, whether it was a past administration, whether it's a current administration. Because if you're going to count money and say this is all the money you had, you need to break it down to find out where all this money is coming from. So that's where the transparency comes in. And I can promise you that it will be transparent because I will be asking questions, and I would also be in my report some of that financial update so that you know what we have and we don't have. Because I do believe that's important, because the Basileus, being that they're over with programmatic and sponsorship and partnership, well, you should have some of that information in that report too. Encourage international fundraising initiatives that benefit chapters. What we got to do, we got to benefit the chapters all across the country, and sometimes and the overseas chapters as well. So we got to look more into that and see what we can do so we can have certain fundraisers that benefit not only just management of Zeta, but everyone. Sisterhood to the fifth power. Well, I know that this is really near and dear to my heart. And this is about the program I want to create called FHC, Forgiveness, Healing, and Cohesiveness. Forgiveness is our decision, healing is our responsibility, and cohesiveness is our outcome. So I want to, and we've talked about this. We've had, and I hear management from the highest level of Zeta all the way down to the lowest talking about the mean girl syndrome and the mean spirit in Zeta, and how people are being treated and how people are being talked to, and all of this stuff that's going on with the discipline complaint, and the people just are unhappy. We can't keep doing this, my sorors. We just can't. We're destroying each other. And you can't talk about it if you're one of the problems. Now, I know that there's things that have happened to many of us, but sometimes what you got to do is you got to let it go. Forgive. That's the decision you have to make. I know that things have happened to me, but I've now forgiven and moved forward, because that's my decision. I can't keep being stuck in the mud. When people can't forget what if somebody says, well, I'm mad with her from 20 years ago, and they don't even know what they're mad about, that's not healthy. You got to forgive. Because when you forgive, then you begin to heal. Then you begin to feel better. That's your responsibility. Because if you don't forgive, you can't heal. And if you can't heal, you can't go on. And we just stuck there. We gotta make that move. And then when we heal, we can be cohesive and we can work together. So I'm going to ask the national chaplains. I'm going to ask the mental health program directors. I'm going to ask conflict resolution, and I'm going to even ask our training initiatives. But we are going to come up with some a program that will encompass what I've just talked about with forgiveness, healing, and cohesiveness. We're going to have real talks about this. We're going to have symposiums about this. We're going to help you. We're going to have, if we have to get a hotline. We need to be able to communicate with you. We need to stop you from feeling this way. We need to get people to understand that we're not going to tolerate being treated badly, being bullied, being talked down to. And it got to start with management from the top. And that includes everyone that's elected, every regional director, every state director, everybody that's on the state boards, the regional boards, everybody that can, because power sometimes goes to people's heads. But we got to bring it back down to what's important. And that's what this program is going to encompass. It's going to encompass that forgiveness, healing, and cohesiveness. And we're going to learn how we can do better and treat each other better. And yes, we are Christians and we believe in the higher power, but we can't just say it. We got to live it. So when you start praying, make sure when you turn around, the person that's praying, that the next thing they're not doing is talking about somebody else behind your back or casting aspersions on your name. We're going to have to stop that, and we have to call a spade, and we're going to have to say we are not going to tolerate behavior like this. And this is what we're going to do. We're going to talk to each other, and we're going to forgive each other. And then we're going to move on. So I want you to think about this because you're going to hear more about this. But this program is going to be top of top of what we're going to do, uh, and what we're going to say and how we're going to act. And then you're going to see, you're going to see how you're going to be feeling. And if you have any comments and concerns, we're going to ask for those too, because we're going to take those into consideration because we want a sisterhood that moves forward with love and admiration for each other and not like crabs in a barrel crawling over each other to get somewhere and hurting each other, because that will not work any further. My customer service aspects. I'm all in about customer service because, as I told you all, each and every one of my sorors is my client. I treat you with that customer service excellence. You know that no matter how much I travel and where I go, anyone that knows, I've given out my number for the 4 years I was grad. I told you, call me. If you want to talk to me, you call me. I'm accessible to the sisterhood. I'm going to give you my number again, and I want you to call me at any time. If I do not answer the call right there, I will be calling you back within 24 to 48 hours. If I'm on the road traveling, I will drop you an email. I will tell you I'm on the road. Let me get back to you that next week when I'm home. That's what I do, because if I want to give you that respect, that service that is due you, because you are a paying member of the organization. And even if you're not paying and you're unfinancial, but you may want to come home, I'm going to treat you the same way, because I want people to come back to Zeta, because we need them to be reclaimed, because we may have 30,000 this year, but we want to have more next year. And to have more is that what is not always just new members, it's about retention and reclamation, and that's what we got to concentrate on. But that's why I said the FHC is how we're going to get to a lot of these parts, because if you want to reclaim and retain, you need to be able to treat each other well so that they'll want to come back. and they want to be able to work cohesively with you. So we're going to continue to implement this customer service that we expect. We need to do that from management levels. We need to be able to be responsive, and we need to be able to prioritize where we can communicate and get back to you on a timely basis. So the information sharing, and these are some of the things that are being done, and some are going to be an uptick in them. I used to have a monthly cabinet meeting, and that was where I would conduct these meetings with all the program directors to discuss their updates, share best practices, and align our goals. And so we can ensure consistency. I will reinstitute that again because I believe that every month that program directors, we all need to speak to each other because no one should be working in a vacuum where these people are doing this, but nobody knows what's going on the right hand, and nobody's going on the left hand, and people in the middle doing their own thing. So we're going to sit down and talk. I'm going to make it my business to be able to communicate, give them my vision and the clarity in what they need so they can move forward. Because when you appoint people to these programs, you just don't sit there and not do it, not tell them what it is that you expect. You manage the expectation. You talk to them about what you envision, what you create, and then you want them to go ahead and move from there and then build upon what you have said and then bring it on home, bring it together. And doing that would also make sure that we have these meetings so that everyone will be on the same page and understand what each other is doing and be able to help each other because that's how we collaborate from within. We have our bi-weekly regional director meetings. Now, this is always important. It happens now. We need to keep that going because, we all need to be on the same page. So we need to be on the same page about what's going to be happening at regional conferences, what we need to do on our communication level, things that are coming up, things that we got to look forward to, and then of course any issues and concerns. So we want to keep that going, and we want to celebrate those successes with our region. We want to communicate things. We want to make sure that everybody is on the same page and knowing everything that they need to know to be a functioning member of the organization. And that will go through our regional directors. And then I had monthly state director meetings, and I'm going to continue monthly state director meetings because they're even though they're elected, they need to be able to hear from me, and I need to be able to hear from them. What are their issues? What are their concerns? And then they need to hear from me about what is going on and how we're moving the organization and what is the vision and where are we going and how when these programs are rolling out and what are we doing with them. So it was very engaging. They love having those monthly meetings, and we had state directors. They took turns and who was going to be the moderator and who was going to be the grammarians for the evening, but it worked out well, and I want to continue that because that is how we continue keeping our officers involved. The Grand's job is a busy and hard job because she needs to speak to all of these people. She needs to be in touch with them on a regular basis. They need to be able to get in touch with her on a regular basis. They need to communicate with each other. And that's timely, but I have the time to do that. Now, I'm coming to the end because I know you got lots of questions, but I'm not now. I'm going to tell you right here. I got 3 slides. You see what this says? Maximizing Zeta to the fifth power. Year one project timeline. So for one whole year, from July 13th, because that's the first Monday after we're at home from Boulay, I'm gonna go to work. I'm showing you everything that I will be doing from July 13th, 2026, all the way to August 31st, 2027. It's 57 slides. I don't have them here. I'm going to tell you where you can find all of them. But this backs up what I just went over. And what this is showing you is when I'm going to start sending out the news brief, when I'm having meetings and whom I'm having meetings with. It's gonna show you it's gonna show you when I'm kicking off planning meetings for Zeta Day on the Hill. It's gonna show you when I'm kicking off Boule planning meetings. It's gonna show you when I'm kicking off Zoll meetings. It's gonna show you when I'm doing Global Day of Service, what the meetings, everything is going to be on here that you need to know. And then anything else is going to be added on as we go because there'll be other appointments and other initiatives that will be. There's going to be a rollout of a number of initiatives, and you're going to see the dates that they're rolling out starting in November, December, January, February, all of the new initiatives, all of the things. You're going to hear all about them. You're going to hear from the officers. You're also going to hear when I'm going to start with sending out the job descriptions and for all of the appointees that we need, which would be on the first. I wanted to go back to show you right there that this is where, they're going to have that special edition on the 20th of July. I'm coming out right away. You're not going to have to even worry about it. And that's going to be sending out that information for program directors and vice directors outside of the standing programmatic committee per the CMB of version 12. And that's all going to be in the news brief because we want to give you time to go ahead, read these position descriptions, submit your application. So we'll be ready to have everything announced by mid-August. We have to move and we have to move quickly. I'm not giving myself any time in between there because we do not want any breaks in the action. We want to make sure I'm going to be meeting on a weekly basis with the treasurer. I'm going to be meeting on a monthly basis with the ED. I'm going to even have that transition and onboarding. You see that's 20 days that I'm going to meet with all of the past officers and then get all of the transitioning done there. And then I'm going to meet with the new elected officers. I'm going to work closely with the chairman of the board. We have a lot of things that we have to talk about. So there are going to be meetings with them. But you will see this all on this 1 year project timeline. And like I said, it's 56 slides of these because I took my time to make sure that I had everything listed for you of what I'm doing and when I'm doing it because I want you to know you can check it off and say job completed because that's what I did for you in 2018 and that's what I'm going to do for you in 2026 right through. So, continuing the legacy. So, here I am, I'm telling you that we've laid a foundation. I'm not here to throw out programs from a past administration. I didn't do it before. I'm not going to do it now. I'm just here to enhance, bring them together, put them under put them under umbrellas where they belong and keep it moving. We can't keep throwing the baby out with the bathwater. Just because somebody new come in, oh, I don't want to do her stuff. I want my name on this. I want to do something new. We're not doing that. We're going to keep it and we're going to move forward. You're going to see how we move forward and we build upon and we keep moving. And I hope even way after me, that the next and the next and the next will feel the same way because that's how Zeta will grow and flourish because we are a cohesive unit and we are forward thinking in this organization. So all I've got to say, my sisters, be the catalyst of change by maximizing Zeta to the fifth power. Thank you.
Thank you so much. That was amazing to hear your dynamic platform. We are super excited about all the wonderful things that you have shared with us. And now it's time for us to get into some Q&A questions. And so as we received a lot of questions, and we will not be able to get to them all this evening. But please be sure again to make sure you visit the website so that way some of those additional questions could potentially be answered through the platform. All right. And so we're going to get into our first question. And so we have a question that says, how do you plan to prioritize and streamline the various initiatives our organization supports so that chapters and SOARs can stay focused and effectively engaged without feeling overwhelmed? Because it seems like we have a lot of our hands in numerous pots.
Thank you so much for that question. And I do believe that I did speak to that a little bit in my presentation, but I know that you had a lot going on in there. So, I know you were just trying to focus. But as I said, we need to, we need to look at all the programming. We need to take an assessment of the programming. We need to make sure that what programming is still relevant and current, and then we need to know those that may not be, that we won't have to deal with those, and we will put them all together, because then with your community assessment that each chapter should do, you will know what will work in your community, and then you'll be able to choose from the updated programs in the Z Hope portfolio of the things that were related that you may be able to do in your community. Now, for the Capstone Initiative, which is closing the poverty gap, the generational poverty gap. Let's remember, what did I say about that? I said there was things we had to do on a financial end. We had to do training. We had education. We had food banks. These are things that are in Z Hope, but we're pulling them together under one umbrella, which would be the closing the poverty gap, the generational poverty gap. So that would, in turn, be giving extra points, things of that nature that I would want to do for that. But those are things that maybe there are chapters out there that are already doing a lot of that work. So it's not extra work. What you have to think about is what is best in your communities that will serve those communities. That's why we have that portfolio. And with that portfolio, you may able to change. Now, we will give you everything in there, and all you will have options. And I believe sometimes when you have a lot of options, maybe that's overwhelming to you. But when you do that community assessment, those options may not be as overwhelming as what you think, because there are certain things that you have already been doing, constantly doing, and you can continue to do. And you just can't spread yourself thin. So we will work with you, and if need be, we will work state by state, region by region, but we will have more sessions about this. We will have more intimate talks about this so that you'll be able to prepare yourself in what you want to do that is beneficial in your community. Always think that what is going to be beneficial in your community? What do they need? That's what you need to concentrate on, and there will be programs in that Z Hope portfolio that you'll be able to address those needs with.
Thank you so much for that additional response. Our next question, what steps can be taken to refine our visual presentation and streamline our programs in a way that it enhances our brand and sparks greater interest among prospective sorority members?
Okay, and that's something that we need to talk about as a brand. What is our brand? Not what we have as the branding guidelines, but uh, we've heard about this throughout the sisterhood. We need to we need to settle on what is our brand. Is our brand sisterly love or sisterhood? Is it finer womanhood? Is it education? What's our brand? we have to make a decision on what the brand is. And once we know what the brand is, then we build on that specific thing. Deltas is known for a certain brand. AKAs is known for a certain brand. Omegas is known for a certain. What is our brand? I mean, we have those pillars, like I said, but what's the specific brand? And once we know what the specific brand is, I'm not going to say that I'm going to give you what the specific brand is, or or the national executive board. I'm going to make sure that you all are going to be able to vote on what the specific brand is. And when we all are in the same agreement, we're then going to go out and market that specific brand. So if we decide that it's about finer womanhood, then we'll market finer womanhood because that's what you want to say is our specific brand. But if you say that it's scholarship, then we'll go out there and market, and we'll be the first ones out there doing everything it is about scholarship. And we're going to bring in partnerships that have that same kind of mentality and that mindset and that vision and their mission. So we're going to decide on that, but we're going to do that by making sure that the body has the final decision about that, and we're going to bring that up. We're going to send out information to you. We're going to get feedback from you, and then we're going to make that decision. And once we do that, then it could be streamlined, then it could be marketed to the public because it's not just the internal, because I know we think a lot about internal, but see, I think outside of internal. I need to know that all of these other organizations, all of these other companies, Fortune 500 and everything else. See, I want to be able to say Zeta stands up there with those people. So, like when someone says Zeta Phi Beta Sorority and Corp, they know who that is because of our brand, because of what we do, how we show up, and who we are. So we have to market not only within, we have to market outside. And we're going to do that. We're going to finally say what is the brand. And that's what we're all going to communicate that once it is decided by you, the body, because that's a very important decision and it shouldn't be just made up in the echelon. It should be made by the body.
Thank you for that response. And so, in your presentation and discussing your platform, you mentioned ZNF a few times. And so, we have a question. Is ZNF a private foundation or a public charity?
ZNF is by IRS a 501(c)(3). So that is public. I mean, we have our books open. If anybody that donates money to us, if they say they want to see our financial books, we have to open it up for them because they are donors inside the organization, outside the organization. And we have rules and regulations that we have to follow uh, due to the IRS, and all of them are being followed. And therefore, we want to now, as the affiliate, we want to make sure that it's a cohesive collaboration where ZNF is going to work and help Zeta as well as Zeta is there to help ZNF. And it has to be something that we can both agree on, which that is why we have a service agreement, and that is why we're going to create more opportunities so that we can work together, so that we can plan, get better, and that we can get more funding coming in because you can get that from that 501(c)(3).
Thank you so much for that. Another question that we have is there consideration for limiting the core programs to one or to two primary sponsors or partnerships in order to create more of a clarity and consistency in the execution for the members?
I'm sorry, you said, is there um
Consideration for limiting core
part
programs,
core programs, not
programs
not partnerships, just core programs?
core programs, but they mentioned as it relates to partnerships. And for example, partnering with a single organization like Walmart for Adopt a School, or New Balance, or Brooks for Zetas Have Hearts.
Well, it really depends because when you limit to 1 to 2 programs, you're limiting your partners because every partner might not be with 1 or 2 core programs. We have a bevy of partnerships because we have different programs out there. And sometimes we need that because that's how you get it. That's how you get in more sponsorships. As I said, we come out with programs that are viable for the sisterhood, but we also state, and that is what the sisterhood has to understand. Even if we have several programs, even if you have a book of different initiatives, you still need to work on what is beneficial in your community. So, what may be beneficial in a community in the Bronx isn't beneficial in a community in Pasadena, California. So if you only had 1 or 2 core programs, somebody might be left out. So when you have a number of programs that chapters can make decisions about what they can do, which would be something they would be able to help in, these programs will help in their communities, then that is why we have more than one. We're not asking you to do 20. We're asking you to concentrate on what is best in your community. That's what you should be thinking of first. So the programs that we have is there for everyone across the country, and then some that we want to do for abroad so that they have options and choices. And then our partners will also see that our organization has different core initiatives that maybe 1 or 2 will suit them and they would come aboard with that. But if it wouldn't, then we would not be able to bring them on if we only had 1 or 2 and either one doesn't suit them. And we do need partners and we do need sponsors because we need money. Because the more money we bring in, then we don't have to ask the members for more money. So we have to keep those thoughts in mind.
Thank you so much for that. And so now switching gears from programs, we have a question. Will you include members at large in the capstone activities and all other activities pertaining to the sorority?
I believe that even though we have members at large, and I know we have different issues about members at large, they still pay dues. They pay dues to the to national. They don't pay to the chapter. They don't pay to the region. They don't just pay to the state. I do understand that, but they do pay dues to national. So therefore, if they're a dues paying member, they should be able to be included in the programs if that's what they wish to do. Because let's remember, they're members at large today. But we want them to come back into the fold in our chapters. So we have to be encouraging to do that. So we don't want to put them out there on an island and just say, well, you members at large, you're not helping us, you're only helping national. You're helping Zeta Phi Beta Sorority Incorporated because you are paying some sort of dues to the organization. And I want them to feel included as well. And I want them to come back home to chapters. And to do that, we need to be able to include them in our initiatives.
Thank you. So our next question that we have, are we going to look at analysis of our current mapping of our regions? Perhaps a committee who helps us address the issue before a Boule year so we can ensure all Sorors feel heard.
And you said mapping of.
Yes, an analysis of our current mapping of our regions.
Okay, and I know I've heard that before, and that is something that we really need to address, and Jim, because I've heard it in different ways that even changing some of the states that are in one to another to be better aligned, that type of thing. We really need to look at that, because we weren't always 8 regions. We history tells you we've evolved, we've changed, and we need to look at that to see where we stand with our regions, with what are the states in the regions, how are they aligned, are they aligned properly so that they're getting the best results in the areas they're in, or would they be needed or would it be better in another area? Those are a lot of things that we have to look at, and we do have several teams already, plus plus membership. So we're going to have to look at that. That is something that I thought about even since I was first anti. So I would like to revisit that and see where we are and get a proper analysis of the health of our entire organization and how all of these regions align in the states, and if it's cohesive, where if it's not cohesive, then where are we and how we're going to make that happen and make different changes and then bring that to the body.
Great. Well, thank you so much for that. And we only have 5 minutes left. And so we've been on this call, and it's been an amazing real talk with you to hear about your platforms, the initiatives that you want to enhance and maximize to the fifth power. And so I am going to leave these last 5 minutes for you for any closing remarks that you have.
Thank you so much, Sora Fitzgerald. I just want to say I want to thank you all, number one, for this, but I also wanted to say one thing that I forgot. um when it came to my timeline, there was Boule, when we are going to start rolling out Boule meetings and kicking it off and doing everything on the rollouts. I wanted to say that one thing I noticed that we need to do is we need to engage the membership when we have some of these um big committee meetings, especially for these national conventions. I'm going to propose that we are going to go live on some of our Boule meetings, some of our Zoll meetings with the membership when we have certain things that we want to articulate and make sure that you all know way before it gets to registration period. I want you to see how we're working and how we're developing a Boule, what we're doing for it. I want you to even know how much the registration is going to be months before registration ends up. I want you to have a video where you're looking at the hotels and where it's going to be, where you're going to be, how far you're going to, all of that. I'm going to make sure that happens for you because I believe that we need for you all to see the engagement of how we're working with this. And we're going to schedule several of our Boule planning session meetings that we'll have for 2028, the Boule. We're going to ensure that we invite the sisterhood to sit and listen in on that as well as others. So these are some of the things, like I said, it's exciting for me because there's so many things that I have in my mind that I know that you would want to see it and you would want to be involved with it because it's all about the sisterhood. And I want you to feel that you are involved because you are members, financial members of this great organization. And I want you to know that in me, as a grand, I will always think of you all first. You're my top priority. You are my sisters, and I want you to have the best experience in the sisterhood by being able to see everything clearly, by making sure that you get your questions answered, by making sure that you see the finances and what we're spending it on and where we're going and how's it going, because you need to know what your money is being spent on. I want to make sure that the programs are there, that you can talk about them, that you understand them. I want to make sure that the officers, whether they're elected or appointed, that they know that they have somebody in me that they can always refer and ask questions of, and I will be there to help each and every one of them. I am responsive, I am timely, and I am your sister, Valerie Hollingsworth Baker. And I thank you so very much for listening to me this evening. My entire presentation with my 64-page timeline is going to be on my website by Thursday this week. And we will send out a flyer, and we will also make sure that everybody that registered will be able to see it, review it, and it is copywritten because I want to make sure that everyone understands these are my ideas. This is what I have come up with, along with for what I've heard from the sisterhood, what I've seen over the years, and what I believe is the direction in what you want to go in. So I want to thank you all so much again because I've enjoyed this evening. This is what you wanted. You wanted to hear about what I'm going to do as Grand, not what I have done because you heard plenty of that. But I want you to know what I am going to do, and you all are going to be there every step I make. You will be walking beside me because we all are a sisterhood, a team, and we're together. Thank you and good night.